Hello everyone, मैं हूँ तेजस्विनी शेवते and welcome back. We were studying economics, chapter number 2, utility analysis for 12th state board. We have already done with the meaning of utility, the features of utility, the types of utility. So to refer this, please go and see my previous videos. Today in this video, we would be covering the concept of utility, that is total utility and marginal utility. So stay tuned and let's see the concepts. Okay, so talking about the concepts of utility, that is that is total utility and marginal utility. So these are the two concepts of utility, which means total utility and marginal utility. We are going to see them more in detail. So what do you mean by total utility? Total utility is the utility which is derived from the sum total of the utilities derived by a consumer from consumption of all the units of a commodity. Now, in layman's language, let me just help you out what total utility is. For example, if I give you 10 mangoes to consume, the utility that you derive from the first mango plus the utility that you derive from consuming the second mango plus the utility that you derive from consuming the third mango and the utility that you derive from consuming the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, all 10 mangoes that you have consumed. The utility derived by consuming all these 10 mangoes at a glance is called as total utility, and hence you need to remember the sum total of the utilities. So every mango is going to give you some utility, right? So when you add all the utilities of the mangoes that you have consumed from all the units or all the mangoes, you get total utility. So what do you need to remember in this definition is that total utility is the sum total. Sum matlab addition of all the utilities that you derive from all the possible units that you have consumed. So this is called as total utility. Symbolically, total utility is written as summation of marginal utility. Now, to understand this, we are going to see what marginal utility is. So marginal utility is the utility which is derived with an additional unit that you consume. When we explain what marginal utility is, you will be able to understand this more in detail. For now, you just need to understand that with every additional commodity that you consume, you get certain utility. When you add all the utilities of every additional unit, you get total utility. There's one more formula to derive total utility. Total utility of n is equal to marginal utility of 1, marginal utility of 2, marginal utility of 3, until marginal utility of n. So where total TU is the total utility and MU is the marginal utility. So for example, if you want to find out total utility of 10 mangoes, n is the total number of the particular commodity that you consume. So you need to add up marginal utility derived from consuming first mango plus the marginal utility derived from consuming second, and until you will just keep adding until you reach your particular digit. So here that is marginal utility derived from the 10th mango. So when you add all the marginal utilities which are derived from the 10 mangoes, you will get total utility. I hope this is quite clear to you. It is as simple as that. Whatever n number of particular commodities that you consume and the utility that you get in total after consuming a particular figure or a particular number of commodity is called as total utility. Moving to the next is marginal utility. Marginal utility refers to the additional utility derived by a consumer from an additional unit of a commodity consumed. So for example, I have already consumed 10 mangoes and now I want to find out what could be the utility that I will derive after consuming one more additional mango, that is the 11th mango, right? So yes, I can find it out. So what is marginal utility? One additional unit you consume, one additional mango you consume, what could be the utility derived from this particular additional one extra commodity that you consume. So marginal utility refers to the additional utility which you are deriving. Why? Because you are consuming an additional unit of this particular commodity. So it is an addition made to the last unit to the total utility. So like I said, like I gave you an example, we first consumed 10 mangoes and now we are going to consume one more mango, which is the 11th mango. So if I want to find out what is the utility that I derived from consuming the 11th mango, yes, I can find it out with this particular formula. So the formula says as marginal utility for n number. So the 11th mango over here is the total utility of 11th mango minus the total utility of 11 minus 1, that is 10. So what here I'm finding is I'm trying to find out the total utility of 11 mangoes over here, and here I'm minusing it from the total utility of 10th mango, which will give me a marginal utility of um, a particular 11th and additional mango that I consumed. Now, moving towards the relationship of total utility and marginal utility, we need to see this particular schedule. This particular relationship is quite important from your board point of view. This particular answer is asked for 10 marks in your board. It is a quite repetitive question which is asked. So you need to focus more on this question. So this is very simple and we will go through this now. So you just need to remember the schedule. Now, what is a schedule? A schedule is a tabular representation, right? In this tabular representation, the first column consists of units of commodities, the second column contains the total utilities, and the third column contains marginal utilities. So for examples, let's assume that we were consuming mangoes over here, so unit of commodities is 8. So here we have consumed 8 mangoes one after the other. Sequence, in a sequence we have consumed how many mangoes? We have consumed 8 mangoes one after the other. Now pay attention, when we consumed the first mango, we got a total utility of 10. Okay, so after consuming the first mango, we got a total utility of 10. I consumed one mango, I got total utility of 10, and hence the marginal utility is also 10, because by now I have just consumed only one mango and the utility derived from this one mango is 10, and hence the total utility and marginal utility remain the same, because अभी तक मैंने एक ही आम consume किया है. Now moving to the next commodity, in case if I consume one more mango, that is the second mango here, the utility, the total utility that I have derived now is 18, right? So now in order to find out the marginal utility, what I need to do is the total utility of the previous unit that I had when I consumed one mango, that was 10, and after which I consumed one more mango. So here I need to do it as 18 minus 10. So n number, here I have consumed two mangoes. So the total utility after consuming two mangoes is 18, and the total utility of the previous number of mangoes that I have consumed, which is one mango, is 10, and hence I get the marginal utility of the second mango, that is 8. If I now again consume a third mango, the total utility is 24. And in order to find the marginal utility, I need to do 24 minus 18. Right? This is how I find the marginal utility. Now I keep on consuming one more mango, that is the fourth mango. The total utility is 28. In order to find out the marginal utility of the fourth mango that I have consumed, it is, how would you find it out? 28 minus the previous number of mangoes that I have consumed, that is 24 mangoes. So I keep this doing. When I consume the fifth mango, the total utility is 30, and after consuming the fifth additional mango, I get it as 2. How do I find it out? I find it out as 30 minus 28. That means I am just getting 2 as a utility when I consume the fifth mango. Now I consume the sixth mango and the total utility remains constant. It still remains 30. So now after consuming the sixth mango, I get no utility, that is zero utility. Why? Because even when I consume the sixth mango, the total utility derived was 30. And when I consumed the fifth mango, the total utility was still 30. Hence, after consuming the sixth mango, the utility remains zero. If I still consume the seventh mango, now the utility starts falling, right? And now the marginal utility turns negative. How do I calculate it? 28 minus 30. So now this marginal utility goes into negative 2. If I still consume one more mango, that is the eighth mango, the total utility still keeps on falling, which turns out to be 24. And my marginal utility is going more deeper into negative. So how do I find this minus 4? 24 minus 28 will give me negative 4. So now what you need to pay attention is, when we are going to study the relationship, you need to understand that a total utility and marginal utility schedule is prepared. There are certain number of units, that is, for example, in this particular schedule, I have taken 8 numbers of commodities consumed one after the other. The total utilities derived is 10, 18, 24, 28, 30. It remains constant, 30, 28, 24. And how do you find out the marginal utilities? The marginal utility derived from the first unit remains the same as the total utility, which is 10. And the marginal utility derived from the second commodity, how do you calculate it? 18 minus 10. Right? So you keep calculating the marginal utilities with the difference of the total utility of the particular level and the previous level. So you always need to minus it this way, minus it this way, right? Minus it this way. So you will keep on getting your marginal utilities. Now look at the total utility. What do you see in the total utility graph? You see that the total utility keeps on increasing. Now, how does it keep on increasing? The total utility derived was 10, then it turned to be 18, then it still increased to 24. From 24, it went to 28. From 28, it went to 30. It remained constant, and then it started diminishing. It went to 28, and then it still fell down, that is 28. So what you can see is the total utility curve will keep rising, and then it will remain constant at a particular point, and then it will start falling. If you look at the marginal utility figures, you will always see that the marginal utility keeps declining, right? It keeps declining. So first it was 10, then it went to 8, then it went to 6, 4, 2, it came to 0, then it fell down to negative, that is minus 2, and it went more deeper into negative, that is minus 4. So if you see that the total utility keeps on increasing, but the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. The total utility keeps on increasing, but at a diminishing rate. Now, what do you understand by diminishing rate? Initially, when there was a growth in the total utility, it increased with 8, right? Then it increased with 6. It did increase, but the rate of growth was low. Then it increased with just 4, and then it increased with 2. So now there is an increase which is seen. That means 8, 6, 4, 2. There is an increase in the number which is being seen, but this increase keeps on increasing at a diminishing rate. कम रेट से बढ़ रहा है but कम रेट से बढ़ रहा है. Hence it is called as total utility increases at a diminishing rate. Now we are going to plot this particular schedule on a graph. Okay, now putting this particular same schedule on the graph, you could screenshot the particular schedule, and now you just try to plot it on the graph. So what had happened is, when you were consumed, you have consumed the first unit. Now what has happened is, on the x-axis we plot the number of units. So on x-axis you will always plot the number of units, and on the y-axis you usually plot total utility and marginal utility. In this particular diagram, we are just going to concentrate on total utility and marginal utility for now. So if you see, when I consumed, so you just plot the number of units as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 were the total utilities, number of utilities, that number of commodities that we had consumed, and this is the scale that I have marked, wherein 30 is the maximum utility that I derive, right? So when I had consumed the first utility, I had received the total utility. Now first we will draft plot the total utility. So when I had consumed the first utility, I got total utility as 10. When I consumed the second utility, I got the total utility as 18, right? When I consumed the third utility, I got it as 24. Then I consumed the next utility, I got it as like near about 28. Then when the fifth commodity was consumed, I got the total utility as 30. When I consumed the sixth commodity, it still remained 30. When I consumed the seventh commodity, the total utility diminished to 28. When I still consumed an eighth unit, it diminished to 24. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to join these particular points to draw a total utility curve. So what you can see in this total utility curve is that the total utility curve keeps on increasing, comes at a point where it remains stable, and then starts falling down. So where does it remain stable? It remains stable on the fifth and the sixth point. Now the sixth point is called as the point of satiety. Point of satiety, right? So what is point of satiety? Point of satiety means now it has, the total utility has reached the maximum possible level. Now once it reaches the maximum possible level and now it cannot grow, it starts down falling. So maximum a level where point of satiety means that you have reached the maximum kind of happiness, you have reached the maximum kind of satisfaction that you have already reached, and if you still keep on consuming one more unit, your total utility is going to fall down. Why? Because the utility derived from one additional unit is going to turn into negativity, right? So now we will plot down the marginal utility curve. So the marginal utility curve was 10, then it went on to 8. If we just go back and we will just see what it was. So it went on from 10 to 8 to 6, 4 to 0, minus 2, minus 4. So coming back, we are going to plot this down. So first it was 10. Second commodity, when I consumed the second commodity, that marginal utility was 8. Then when I consumed the next unit, it was the third unit, it was 6. Then it came down 4. Then it came down to 2. Then it came down to 0. Then it fell as minus 2 and then minus 4. So now if I join these points of the marginal utility, I get the marginal utility curve. So if you see that this marginal utility curve is always falling down, it is a downward sloping curve, it is a negative curve, right? Now when this is a negative curve, what happens is, you need to remember, when this was the point of satiety, at this particular point when the total utility reached its maximum possible, the marginal utility reached 0, right? So you need to understand this relationship, that when the total utility is the highest, the marginal utility reaches 0, that it intersects the x-axis. When one more additional unit is consumed, the total utility starts falling. That is when the marginal utility turns down to negative. If one more additional unit is consumed, the total utility still keeps on falling, and the marginal utility still falls deeper into negative. So what you need to understand is, total utility is always positive. It is always positive. Yes, it keeps on increasing, stays stable, reaches a point of satiety, and then starts falling. So do you understand this? It keeps on increasing, then it reaches a point of stability, and then it starts on falling, right? But looking at the marginal utility curve, it always keeps on falling, and it reaches a neutral point, 0 point, and then turns on to be negative. So you need to remember, marginal utility curve can be positive, it can be zero, and it can turn into negative. You just need to remember, when the point of satiety, when total utility reach the points of satiety, the marginal utility intersects the x-axis and becomes zero. Can we go back and check our schedule so that you understand this? I'm talking about this particular point over here. I'm talking about the sixth unit. So when I consume the sixth unit, my total utility was the highest, 30, and now it is not going to increase more than 30, and that is when my marginal utility was zero. That is when it intersected the x axis. Coming to the graph again, so what you need to understand in this particular relationship is that total utility will keep on increasing, it will remain stable, it will reach at a point of satiety. Point of satiety means the consumer has achieved the maximum possible satisfaction by consuming 6 units, and after which, if the consumer still keeps on consuming the commodities, he will get his total utility will start falling down. So in this marginal utility curve, the marginal utility curve can be positive, it can be zero, it can be negative. So when does it intersects the x-axis? When the total utility is the maximum. So in general, if you know, this is similar with what we are going to study in law of diminishing marginal utility. When if you keep listening a song on a repeat mode, initially you like it a lot. Why? Because you're enjoying it, the intensity of that particular want is quite good. As and when you hear that song again and again on repeat mode, now you do not like that song. Why? Because you are kind of pissed with that song, and now it is nothing new that you are enjoying in this particular song. So what you need to remember is that total utility will keep on increasing, but at a diminishing rate, and marginal utility will always diminish. So in the next video, we are going to see what law of diminishing marginal utility is. Till then, thank you and bye bye.